Shhhh. It's a super quiet podcast thing that I'm doing right now. I recorded some stuff earlier this morning. I was legit just out of it. Decided to tie one on a little bit just to shut the old noggin down. And, it's rolling the dice. Sometimes it's a good idea, sometimes not. It's whatever. Anyway, this comedian of Indian descent had made a documentary about everything that's wrong with Apu. The character, one of the main characters of The Simpsons. It's been there, it'll be 30 years. In 2019, it'd be 30 years that show's been on the air. And now, all of a sudden, Hank Azaria gets on late night television on Stephen Colbert's show and says that he's more than willing to step away from the character or make some dramatic change. Now, first of all, throughout the history of comedy and entertainment, there's always been some form of outrageous portrayals of minorities. And understandably, you look at the vaudevillian minstrel shows, which were mainly white and black performers in blackface with cartoonish hair and rags and all that stuff. And understandably and obviously that we definitely but then we moved on, but it's scary to think that it wasn't too long ago that was the thing. I posted before when I had Facebook that the most successful silent film of all time was a film about the KKK, and some have actually tied it to a resurgence of the KKK in the United States. So again, these are things that, in the grander scheme of things, weren't that long ago. Now, as far as Apu is concerned, I honestly don't. I'm not sure, whether or not what good would it do now? And a part of me wants to say that maybe this was a sophisticated ploy to once again take advantage of the disenfranchised people, the dubbed social justice warriors, that for ratings, I guess. I'm sure The Simpsons, obviously, as long as it's been on the air, it's Fox's thing. It's their Mickey Mouse. And I guess the money, as you know, there was that point where a lot of people were going to walk away from the show, and Fox already had people ready to take their spots because of the money. But I do think they're trying to draw more attention to it. I don't know, but I think at the end of all of this, Disney's looking to get into the Simpsons business by proxy of owning the majority of Fox. But anyway, what really I wanted to mention is the effect in which comedy is being generally torn apart. I think that eventually clean comedy, or I guess by proxy of just maybe one bad example of a bad comedian, like the Michael Richards incident, would be used to springboard into a free speech debate again. And a lot of comedians nowadays are working on a very tense level in these little clubs. A lot of people get upset, whether they're pro-Trump or pro-Hillary people or whatever. They throw drinks at the comedians and all that stuff. And I understand that there's a difference between the provocative thought, deep philosophy type comedians, which are really only so many of them really have maintained success, you know. But definitely that platform's going to change, I think, significantly in the next couple of years. If you know the uprisings and uproars over all this, I personally think it's ridiculous. You know, obviously I would say that because I want to be able to say how I feel or how certain things look. You know, there's comedy within every facet of life and every version of the human. There's all sorts of like, you know, I say a lot of shit about women and men, and they both, you know, equally have their faults and their need to be looked at and examined, whether we laugh at it or not. It's the truth, you know, in a lot of cases, at least the way I perceive it. And Dave Chappelle was one of the best at doing racial humor. And Bill Burr is a modern example too of being able to dismantle every kind of. If there's a group, he'll find a bit and he can work it well into his routine. So yeah, I think that the landscape of that is changing, and of course we got in Hollywood. Hollywood right now is just waiting to go ahead and put this Avengers movie out. It's going to make a lot of money. And I think long as Disney has these planned kind of, you know, these series, I think they will be Hollywood. That's all Hollywood will be, you know, from a theatrical standpoint. Of course, I think very soon, very, very soon, that all things will be put into streaming boxes, more or less, and everyone will choose their little packages. They'll pay a month for whatever the case may be, and I think that's where it's headed. Disney will be the people to be the first to really push it. You know, we're talking about theaters that are only, you know, a select. If you're part of that, you know, service plan, we'll say that you'll have the availability to go see these movies. And I'm imagine that to recoup the losses, that they will nickel and dime everyone to death on that shit, man. It's going to be kind of like the loot box controversies and the DLC controversies that modern video gaming has been dealing with for a little while now, and I think it's kind of plateaued off a little bit, but still, there's still controversies. There's still a lot of baseline level bullshit going on there, and I think Hollywood will follow suit. And if it's up to Hollywood, it would kind of borrow from the video game industry, and just if they can, just do away with live actors altogether. And believe it or not, if you look it up, there's been this program that's been in development for quite some time that they were going to remake some classic films like Casablanca and actually bring back to life classic actors that have been long dead. And much like how the hologram thing was kind of on again, off again, being developed as a live entity for musicians of long dead musicians and some living. These again, you know, I don't know. I really think that, again, I say this and I mean this, that technology is moving very, very fast, and it's almost, you know, millennials or whoever, it's getting to where it's kind of hard for everyone to grasp. All I know personally myself, there's a lot of neat things this device I'm talking into can do, but there's more often I'm saying it's a piece of shit. Because of this convergence of all these things into a single device, I think it's a lot of stress on something of this size and caliber. It isn't like the PC tower I have. But so we've came a long way as far as the technology's there. It's just the quality of it is what's going to be the name of the game. But anyway, this super quiet podcast, this would be good for people that are trying to go to sleep, perhaps. You know, it might be for people that have kiddos trying to sleep. You don't have earbuds or a sound bar. That door was loud. That was my dog, Buster Brown. He's a brown dog, and he doesn't care who knows it. And yeah, I believe it was Samuel L. Jackson's character in Pulp Fiction when he does that monologue, and he says he has a real hard time being the shepherd. I think for a lot of people who are trying to bring some sort of creativity to the table, I find it's a lot harder. It's becoming more difficult for a lot of people to be a comedian. And I'm just talking about professional comedians, the stand-ups and the comics out there that tour and have writers and stuff, because they are having a hard time as well. And most of it is filtered through gender politics and just politics in general, which I think is very important to some people, but I really think, honest to goodness, that it's a byproduct of something else. I think people are really venting through politics the real disappointment they face in their life. And it seems to me, I don't know if it's a cycle, but every couple of months, some sort of revelation presents itself where it's like, holy shit, really? But at the same time, the whole holy shit factor just kind of loses its sting and then it just goes somewhere back in the memory, and then you end up forgetting about it. That's age. Get older. Well, of course, whatever various chemicals you put in your body that might increase the likelihood of forgetting said moment. But there's a lot of things. But one of the things I think people are very disappointed at is you have men that are very sexually frustrated and you have women that are very frustrated in general. Mainly because things aren't going fast enough for them, or things aren't working out, especially if you're in a family situation. And I live in a very small town or small area, and a lot of people in America also can relate. But in particular, Muhlenberg County, Kentucky, has been nothing more than a feedback loop of disturbances in people's lives that's been filtered through hard drug use. Hardcore drug use. Not, nothing, in the grand scheme of things, marijuana is the community or a middle school haunted house, compared to what younger folk are getting themselves into. Most of it starts from a prescription, a legitimate prescription to some sort of, antidepressant or whatever the case. And then it just snowballs into other shit. And alcohol, of course. Alcohol is just, it's an accessory. It's just, to me, it's the last thing to do. But for a lot of people, it's the first thing they're doing. So I really believe, and I've said this to myself, and I've probably said this in text form or something, that I do believe that ignorance is the bliss that we all seek out there in this life. Not knowing. Because the more you know, the more you look into everything, it's just like, ugh, what the fuck is that all about? It's like it presented itself in this form and fashion, but you peek behind the curtain and you're like, holy shit. Not only is there some old crotchety white guy behind the curtain, but it's just like, might as well have a wine bottle sticking out of their ass or something, man. It's gross, but that's life. Behind the curtain of everything, it's a gross fucking mess. I believe given the opportunity, I think a lot of people would choose ignorance. There's that movie, The Lobster, where it's a very kind of a odd turn of events in humanity, where if you didn't pair off and mate or whatever and make children, you were turned into an animal of your choosing. And I don't know if that was just, while I'm at it, my hats are off to the optimist out there, because wow, you guys are special. I really don't know how you do it at all. I envy it, but I also there's a part of me that's like, oh, come on, really? Is that part of the ignorance is bliss? Is it part of putting your fingers in your ears and going la 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 la? I don't know what it is. Is it drugs? Is that drugs too? It probably is. Sometimes. I I really think, we all are products of our time, but at the same time, I really think that we're taking so many steps back as a species while the technology is going so far ahead of us and ahead of everything else. And I think we're living through a grieving period. And people are filtering, channeling their disappointment in their personal life through politics and keyboard warriors, social media stuff, and taking up causes that they really don't quite understand, but they do feel a certain way about certain things. And I understand that. Of course, people shouldn't be discriminated against at all, no matter what color, gender they claim to be or whatever. But the way people are going about this stuff is just childish, but that's just part of it. About it, I mean, it's a lot easier just to have people at each other's throats than to have them thinking about what's, the root cause of their problems, because it's just too tough to handle. And that's okay. It's just some people just really need to be honest about it. Time and time again, especially, and I've said this so many times, your political affiliation is just that. It's just whatever you want it to be, but at the same time, it's a whole lot of nothing. It's just a thing you do once, twice every so often, that you go to a booth and you show your appreciation for this candidate that you believe represents your best ideas. And that's fine. It's like any other form of celebrity or entertainment, really. Because there's a few fundamental problems with politics in America that definitely need to be examined. But I don't think that any elected official is going to take time out of their day to listen to your complaints, especially if you didn't donate a large sum of money to their cause. And at the end of the day, you work hard for a bunch of strangers to take a percentile of that away from you. You don't know these people. You don't know why they need that much money. But I can tell you this, with $1 trillion debt to the country of China, I would expect some pretty lowbrow shit to at least get a minor dent in that mountain of debt. It's a Grand Canyon. Actually, it's a black hole of debt. It's so large. But it's something to consider out there, folks. I'm speaking softly and a little gravelly because I'm kind of just blah. And it's just, it's a spectrum of me, I guess. Sometimes loud, abrasive, or excited. But, maybe the louder you are doesn't make it, make it any more right. But you combine all this stuff with general misunderstandings between men and women, or the masculine nature versus the feminine nature, and you just get a migraine, a cluster fuck headache of just like stop, screaming into a pillow or something, or fucking cranking your music up as loud as you possibly can and screaming the lyrics to your favorite song. I understand it. But here's what I think a lot of people need to do. I think a lot of people just need to just cut everybody out for a while. And of course, you got to work, but I'm just saying, just catch up. Take time to catch up on you first. And don't try to placate too much of what you're doing towards other people, because you'll never please everybody. And there's some people you're close to that will never be pleased no matter what. And you don't want to find that out at some vulnerable moment in your life, of course. Kind of sound like an NPR radio person. Anyway, the vulnerable periods of time that you spend, and this is generally out of a relationship or you lost your job, is when you start looking externally to all the contributing factors to why you feel so shitty. And to be fair, in a lot of fucking cases, it is the external world that threw you out. And it's just a circumstance within a circumstance, or whatever the case may be. But you don't want to be in that vulnerable state, realizing, you don't want to come to on revelations about the people around you or the people that you used to spend time with or whatever. It's like, it's like finding out, like that Bill Cosby scenario, or some of these actors that came out as these weird and perverted, I guess you can say, individuals. You don't want to be shocked, because there's going to be plenty of things in life that's going to blow you away anyway. You don't need that. No one needs it. Surprises are, as an adult, are never really a good thing. Unless it pertains to winning the lottery or whatever, But that's... each year becomes less likely that you're going to be surprised by anything good. It's usually things that are just fucking awful, and you just want it gone. You just want to just remove it. Another movie that I believe it touched base with this kind of thing was it's a Jim Carrey movie. Well, you know what it is. Where Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That whole premise of the movie was about literally removing people from your perception, through a medical procedure. And which also sounds like something that would be featured in the Black Mirror series, but it's a profound fucking thing to spend time on and develop, and to fucking get a second good draft of and film it. So I know plenty of people that would give anything to remove certain thoughts, events from their life. I don't know anyone. I don't know a single person that's like, nope, no regrets, and mean it. Like, okay, not one person. I don't think you would ever find. There might be some people cocky enough thinking, I have no regrets. But really, do you? Do you really? I don't know about that. I don't know about it. I don't trust that. But one thing I have to realize too, in my 30s, most people I know are in their 30s or about to be in their 30s. And goofing off just doesn't have that flair as it used to about 10 or 15 years before that. And a lot of people just don't simply want to hear my goofy one-liner or some song I wrote. I understand that. That's a rough one to deal with, though, because I feel like others and myself are trying very hard to give you a couple seconds of that bliss. But man, shit, the density of situations in the last oh God, I can't, I'll throw some random number out. We'll just say about 10 years or more, has been just progressing into dark territory, you know. And you can block it all out. Just live your life, 9 to 5 or whatever the case may be. But again, upon reflection, it all hits you. And that's where I believe the true test of your willpower, your mind, all that shit comes into play when the flood of what's been going on starts hitting you. And I think that's why a lot of people flip the fuck out, lose it, almost in a manic state. They just quickly, just abruptly lose their shit. And it just shows you that, throughout humanity, there's these periods of times where nobody's doing well. And that's to be expected, because that's what got us, in those plateaus where things were doing pretty well. For a lot of people, they claim it was the 1950s, and then before that, it was the roaring 20s, But we're in the teens in the 21st century, and look at about what was going on 100 years ago, 1918. There's just blocks of time where nothing significant happened and everyone was just really miserable. And I think it's understated how miserable people are now. A lot of it is our own thing. A lot of it isn't. A lot of it is just circumstances. You just can't. There's a lot of shit you just simply cannot break through on. It's arrested development, failure to launch, whatever. The screen locks up, the computer freezes, whatever. That's it. It's a lot. That's a lot of people. So that's where I feel like the void is filled with hard drugs and alcohol in no particular order, because it just fills the gap to get you to the next point, But of course, as we all know, some of these things are just slow, implicit nihilism, like Mitch Shively has pointed out. Implicit nihilism with people. They know the dangers, but do not care. They want you to watch them disappear or deteriorate in front of, And it's, I think that's why we have a big heroin problem in the country. Not just, it's not just regulated or relegated to certain areas of the country. I'm sure it's worse in some areas, but it's really the whole country is on a big fucking high. It's interesting to hear well-educated, otherwise rational people say, what the fuck is going on? And I don't think we want the answer to that question, because anytime someone does try to answer that question, within the first 3 sentences, nope, click off that, swipe right or swipe left, nope, get it off my feed or whatever the fuck. And I'm telling you, you can only do that for so long before, regardless of what actions you've taken to avoid something, it will come to you in some way. Like it was being guided towards you anyway. Because I've seen plenty of people that are hermits by nature that have been drugged out of their comfortable, non-confrontational life into what could only be described as a blizzard of shit. If I was Jim Leahy from the show Trailer Park Boys, the winds of shit are a blowing. And no matter what, you're going to get tagged by some turds. And it stinks on top of everything else. It just fucking stinks. Rats. Trats. Or hogwash. Humbug. That's it, you know. It's just fucking winds of shit blowing at a pretty steady clip. And sometimes, even though you smell it, and you think you're seeing it in your peripheral vision, but it's coming. And it always is. There's always some shit coming no matter what. So take those little moments of clarity and fucking do what you can to expand it. You know, if you ever had even half of a dream, it's okay to try to follow it, even if it ends up being just a half-ass effort. It's still an effort nonetheless. So, and for those vocal, judgmental people that have something to say because somebody doesn't do things the way that they did things, let me just tell you, I hope you find your happiness, because it's quite obvious that your judgments towards things you A, don't understand, and B, don't really care to know, there's no need for it. There's no real need for it to be so fucking harsh. Because it just shows how obviously unhappy you are about your life. And I get that. And just don't drag anyone else into your shit. It's your shit. Wipe your ass and flush it. Today's Quietcast is brought to you by my made-up sponsors. 21st Century Memory Foam Mattress is a USB 3.0 port. And it's not memory foam like you think it is. It's just memories you're choosing loaded to a flash drive. And every time you lay down on it, you just revel and literally wallow in the greatest moments of your life for as long as you want. Now that's progress. Also another fictional sponsor, free cereal and blowjobs company. It's slightly controversial. It does alienate 50% or more of its own demographic, but that's fine. The cereal is probably Lucky Charms, just because, hey, lucky, you know what I'm saying? And charms and blowjobs. Another made-up sponsor for the Quietcast is National Public Radio. This week, Western Kentucky University will be sponsoring a chili bean look-alike contest. And we'll have Professor Watkins will participate. And coming up next, we have Beethoven's audible flatulence as tuned to the F sharp, being performed by no one. And then after that, the avant-garde artist of Beaver will be banging his own head in front of a cheap microphone in front of a live studio audience of at least a couple thousand people, and probably in Europe. Anyway, a little detour from the serious shit. Let's get back into the serious shit. I curse a lot, and I know a lot of people that listen to this or listen to Casey's podcast are fairly upset about all that, and I understand that, but at the same time, it's a noise.
if you've been sticking around listening to all this stuff, it's just a series of noises that are coming out of my mouth. And it's just an extension of the brain or whatever. And it's whatever. If you get upset with it, that's fine. You can turn it off. There's definitely more entertaining shit to be listening to right now other than this soft-spoken crap, foul language, musings, comparisons, metaphors, and whatever. I've grown fond of talking to myself, more or less. I think I get it. And maybe it's kind of healthy that some people would kind of listen to their own bullshit and just kind of be like, hey, all right, I see how I sound now to everybody. You know. So, yeah, Justin Randolph was on Casey's podcast there for Tuesday. And, yeah, that dude is a very interesting cat. It's kind of a controversial figure. But many of us were during that period of 2003 to whatever, 2007, 8, or what, 9. And I think just to lightly touch base on the ego problem we all experienced, it's because we played in front of so many people at certain periods of people's lives, and it just blew everyone away, and it did get to our heads, you know, all of us. There were some that were trying to keep us grounded, but I mean, it just, you know, we were all a bunch of young people with our hang-ups, and we were using music to deal with it, but there was all this other validation coming from all sorts of weird places and new places, and it fucks with anybody. So, yeah, I mean, of course, I regret how things turned out, and I'm sure Justin had more or less, you know, would say the same thing, but it's whatever. And if you guys still dig the music that happened all those years ago, get back on the Google. And plus, you know, me and Casey still put out stuff, and Justin's trying to put out stuff. Dick Gray is putting out stuff. And Darren Johnson / Sound Theory is putting out stuff. It's there if you want it. You know, it just seems to me that it's about time the audience, the consumers of music, start pushing back. You know, artists have been trying to push it to one, you know, but if the consumer's only way of pushing back is to push it out of your life, then again, this goes back to deeper problems, as I mentioned before. You know, it's either you work way too much for your own good or you don't work at all. At either junction, you're miserable. Just some people have more money than you about it, but they're still miserable. Don't let them fool you. I'm not saying everything's a fucking miserable fucking rainy day in Seattle, but sometimes it is. You know, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I'm purely in favor of pies in the face, slapstick stuff. Let's bring it all back. Let's scoot it on back a little bit to that era. It'd be pretty fucking funny if you ask me, but that's just me, and that's just you, and I'm fine with that. And you know, imposing stuff on people. You know, there's been a few occasions where I was aggressively pursued about something, and it worked out. Like, hey, you're really gonna dig this album? Fucking check it out. Okay, I will. Maybe. I don't know. Fuck you, man. Sensitive artist type. I'll find it myself. But of course, you know, it's bullshit. It's all bullshit. And relationships. You know, back to the masculine nature, feminine nature. I'm just saying that just to be about as safe about it, because man and woman or whatever apparently gets people and really hot and steamy about it. But I'm just going to say that, there is something to be said about relationships that work out. But for every one relationship you see work out, about 250,000 of those do not and will not, because people don't know what they want. And there's people who do know what they want, but they certainly do not want to disclose that piece of vital information to that person they're spending most of their time with. But it's, again, very simple. It's all guided by genetics. We know this. We don't like to admit it. We like to dress it up. We like to put a little funny hat on it and a tie. But it's all genetics. It's all about sex. It's about procreation, really. It really is. And it's not saying this from a Bible-thumping perspective. It's just, actually, it's a scientific perspective. Sex, 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 and more sex. That's it. Simple. You get along with your mate of choosing or whatever, consensus, and you stick around long enough to fuck, and there's more humans. And that's how it works. That is, between a man and a woman. Once again, the masculine identity and the feminine identity, whatever, spectrum analysis. But there's always time and time again the same fundamental problems between men and women. And I think I understand them, but it doesn't really excite me too much. Men have to curb their sexual appetite, and women need to start thinking more logically and less emotionally. Those are two very simple sounding steps to take, but they have proven to be damn near impossible to deal with. So what are we left with? A lot of attempts to fix it, to work around the situation. But in the midst of that, like I said, the ratio, it's a lot of fucking disappointment in there. Always will be. Take care of you first. That's the first thing. You can't please anyone else if you can't please yourself. Just basic fucking shit that's been beaten to our heads that we take for granted, most of those things that we've been told many times. But it's true, Get older, we all become some form of our parents, whether we like it or not. We start seeing the world differently. Some of us have children of their own children. They see things differently. And that's good. For some people it's drugs. And for others it's just to create their own family situation, to really see how the full spectrum of life is all about. And it's fun. But don't go into it thinking you have it figured out. And just because you're not in control doesn't mean you have to spiral out even further out of control. No. Control is a hard thing to maintain in any situation. That's why it's easier for someone with anxiety to speak to a crowd than any other normal situation, because that person, said person with anxiety, has control over that situation. Kind of like what I'm doing now. I have some sort of control. But I say and at the end of the day, and so on and so forth, and whatever the case may be, a lot. I know this, and I'm sure there's probably maybe one person keeping count, and that's cool, and I appreciate that. So let's go back to some fictional sponsors here. Welcome this quiet intellectual fight club podcast is being brought to you by the sun when you don't need it. The Inconvenient Sun is a product of Procter & Gamble / Monsanto Bayer. Are you in a situation where you feel like, man, I really don't need any light on this? Inconvenient Sun will show up and provide that light for you for a low, low monthly fee of $400,000 a month. Also, the Quiet Cast is being brought to you by the miracle of cell phone towers, and the battery life of my phone is pretty incredible. Got to give it up. Thanks, sponsors. Back to the show again. The Shit Show. Some of you are familiar with the Shit Show. Some of you may not be familiar with it. Maybe it goes by another name. But when I was talking about that complicit nihilism with hard drug use right out the fucking gate, that's the Shit Show, man. It's equal parts shit and show. A lot of it's show, though. I'll be honest with you. A lot of it's just for the lulz, for the dank memes. It's show business, baby. And show business runs a lot of the business that we know of. Our thought process, all of us, none of us are safe from it. It's guided us to some degree of disappointment and high expectations and failure. But that's fine. You know, it's like, I don't know. I wish I could be that entertained. You know, with this whole movie stuff, like Kevin Smith, the most annoying thing, and I love like Kevin Smith's early stuff especially, but he just loves every fucking movie he sees. He has had not one bad word to say or whatever. And I'm like, why even bother when it's always going to be, it's like, as long as he's going to be the dog that you show him the card trick to about movies, I can't, you know. And I'm sure a lot of people are the same way, but it doesn't matter. Who gives a fuck? He's not really forcing it down anyone's throats, but people expect more from him. So I guess it'd be a good time to touch base since I mentioned the Inconvenient Sun as a sponsor. We'll talk about inconvenient fucking weather. How about all that noise, huh? Wake up. 80, we'll say it's 80 degrees even. The wind is gently breeze, and it's fucking blue. It's beautiful, dude. And then, you know, you get a message, a weather alert message on your phone saying frost warning. You know, it's going to get down to 22 degrees as soon as the fucking sun decides to take a break. How about that for some wild ass fucking weather? You know what that weather is good for? Nothing really, because you're just going to be teased by most of the day. It's a good way to end up with bronchial type things, upper respiratory problems, pneumonia, you know, bronchitis. You get it. You get it. And if you're like me and you're allergic to apparently everything outside, it's a bummer, dude. Because that's a perfect environment when it goes from that kind of extremes for a while for bacteria to grow. You know, and you learn that if you're into master brewing of wine or beer, that sometimes you can freeze off, you freeze off an aging batch, and then it unfreezes, and then the yeast re-ferments the sugars left or whatever, and it gets stronger. And that's how Brewdog, I believe, brewed the strongest beer in the world, which I believe was at 45 or 50 something percent. I don't know. I forgot. It's insane. After a certain number anyway, it's just fucking, it's barley wine or malt wine, vinegary. I don't know how that's done. Shit's impressive. But anyway, this weather sucks and you know it. But it's okay. Maybe we'll get to that point where it stays spring for a while. We don't have to worry about the fucking winter coming back every once in a while, every other day or whatever. Fuck all that noise. I know it fucks with nature pretty hardcore, or at least the animals are having a hell of a time. Insects definitely having them. Mosquitoes are like, all right, time to fucking just be a nuisance of nuisances. And then they get their little weather message. They're like, for fuck's sake, for real? Yeah, buzz, buzz, you know. And they buzz on to whatever they do. I guess they cross state lines and fucking buy fireworks or something. Yeah. Remember those times when that was a big fucking deal? Yeah, never mind. We're not going to go there. There's also that aspect of life where you look back at things and be like, was I really that excited over that? I can't believe that. That's ridiculous. And then you realize it was damn near 30 years ago. So time's a motherfucker. Time is a motherfucker. Time is an incestual fornicator. And yeah, that's another understated, well, overstated and understated, underrated and overrated phrase. Where does time go? What is time? Who made that shit up? You know, we did, but who cares, right? Yep. Sometimes there's more to life than Harry Potter flavored jelly beans and pieces of plastic shaped like people I have on my wall. Sounds like that was a fart from a distance. It was the mating call of a rare shrew out in the forest looking for berries. And probably cell phone service, because in my world, you know, apparently mosquitoes and animals have cell phones and an affinity for fireworks at state lines. Anyway, this has been a quiet cast. I'm Alan. Thanks for listening. Have a nice day.